structural overview of what these emails reveal to us, okay? The first thing it reveals to us is that all these people in power, the elite, they're all friends with each other. So in public, you know, the Democrats and Republicans, they can be fighting each other, but in reality, they go to the same schools, they go to the same parties, they're just friends with each other. So what you're seeing in public, the sort of like political struggle in public, it's all just fake. It's like wrestling. It's reality TV. The elite are all friends with each other. That's the first thing. Um, Second thing that we've noticed about the emails is how cavalier the elite are. They think that they're above everyone else. They think they're untouchable. So they just speak their minds freely. You know, I mean, Jeffrey Epstein, he was using Gmail in order to make all these sensitive communications. There was absolutely no operational security. He didn't really care because he believed he was untouchable. And that's how the elite think and behave. They live in a bubble. They think that they control the world, and they're untouchable. So they can do whatever they want. And all that matters is staying within this bubble, staying close to each other. The third thing I will say is that these emails don't tell us, but we can assume that there are many layers of networking among the elite. So Jeffrey Epstein, why was he so popular among the elite? Well, I mean, first of all, he was just a friendly guy who did a lot of networking and was able to bring the elite together. But if you go to Epstein Island, you will find that there's a temple there that's almost designed for ritual sacrifice. So what I've researched and what I've discovered is that the way that the elite stay together is through rituals, secret society rituals. Why? Because at the end of the day, if you're part of the elite, your biggest problem is um, trust. How can you trust that person to not rat you out in this political struggle? And the answer is, well, you blackmail each other, right? So you do acts together that would be considered taboo, including sex with underage children. I mean, there are lots of transgressions that you can do, and the more transgressions you do, the more cohesive the elite is. So, unfortunately, if you dig deeper into Jeffrey Epstein, what you'll find is a lot of um, um, transgressions, both sexual and violent as well, breaking these social taboos. I mean, like the public. I mean, like what's really astonishing about the Jeffrey Epstein case is that slowly the inner workings of the elite are being revealed to the public, and all these conspiracy theories that we once believed couldn't possibly be true, including that the entire American elite are just a bunch of pedophiles. I mean, they're slowly turning out to be true, and this marks a radical turning point in American history.
Yeah, yeah, great point. And to that end, in terms of how flippant all of this is, and there is this email that's been the most recent emails that have been going around. What is so incredible about them is that the more that they are released in this weaponized way, the more we find out. And here is one between Epstein and between Epstein's brother Mark and him talking, how are you doing? This is what they're saying. How are you doing? What is your boy Donald up to now? Referring to Donald Trump. Mark Epstein says, or he says, all good. Bannon is with me. So Steve Bannon. Then Mark says, ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. Uh, and I thought I had Surus. That's what Jeffrey Epstein said what that means. That's a Yiddish word for trouble. You and your boy Donnie can make a remake of the movie Get Hard. This is how they're talking to each other on an unsecure server, Professor Zhang, talking about Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. I mean, this is shocking a lot of people, but uh, maybe you can reiterate or reinforce or elaborate on kind of what this really reveals about uh, uh, all of this. What's going on here? Because what I see is a dying American empire kind of just being exposed without uh real, not by journalists, not by people doing the work, but by themselves.
Well, I mean, we also have to remember that Jeffrey Epstein, in his Manhattan penthouse, there's a painting of Bill Clinton in a dress, in drag, basically. So, one possible interpretation is that all these politicians that we think are our representatives, um, they're all just the playthings of the elite. They're just puppets of the elite. They're just paid actors. They're literally paid actors. And so American democracy has always been a lie. Um, and so Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, they just do the bidding of the powerful. And the powerful are, in their parties, secret parties, laughing at us, mocking us, because they've been able to deceive us, and we every day are fighting over these petty politics that has absolutely nothing to do with real power. So I think that what these Epstein emails reveals is the deep contempt that the elite has for the people. And these politicians are nothing more than just these puppets that the elite display in front of us in order to distract us. Everything's being curated by the powerful, and so what we see in Washington D.C. has never been more than a reality TV show.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, great points, Professor Jiang. You know, and it goes deeper than this because I think one of the things that is left out of this conversation has been, we're going to be touching this a lot throughout the program, Israel. Because we have to remember this was a limited release by the House Oversight Committee, by the U.S. government itself, a major, I guess, a slight Democratic Party majority. So really, it was a partisan thing, despite how much the emails really showed. But I want to pull up what what emails are not being emphasized, and I want to pull up this one in particular, uh, talking about how Epstein was effectively drafting foreign policy messaging for former Israeli PM Ehud Barak, who many believe was really instrumental in the Epstein relate. They had a very close relationship. I would use the opportunity, says Jeffrey Epstein, to compare it with Iran, talking about Syria. The solutions become more complex at the time I see. I think many people would like your views on Egypt, Syria, etc., Russia's role. I think you might point out the gassing of women and children is an expression of the 20th century. Women are no longer equivalent children, civilians versus combatants, only literally giving advice, Professor Zhang, on how Jeffrey Epstein giving advice on how Israel should paint uh, uh, its, U.S. foreign policy. I mean, talk about this. I think this really blows open the realities of these relationships and how it gets all the way to the level of empire.
Yeah, so the first thing we need to understand is that power always consolidates and coalesces. What I mean by that is that these intelligence agencies, Mossad, CIA, MI6, they're all, they're all interlocked together. They're all in alliance together. That's the first thing. Second thing is that these intelligence agencies are also in alliance with different secret societies as well as criminal organizations. So, from the perspective of people like someone like Jeffrey Epstein, he's the real power in the world, and that's why he thinks that he can dictate foreign policy to everyone. Okay, so I don't think Jeffrey Epstein was actually a spy. I think Ghislaine Maxwell, his girlfriend, was actually the spy. And one good piece of evidence for that is that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was a notorious spy, and he was working for Mossad, um, MI6, as well as Russian intelligence, the KGB. So that's how the powerful works. The powerful are almost like a nexus of all these intelligence agencies, foreign governments, secret societies, and criminal organizations. And so they discuss amongst themselves how to best frame issues and how to best push events. So from the perspective, if you look at more and more of Jeffrey Epstein's emails, what you would discover is that he was privy to a lot of geopolitical events, and in fact, he was actually helping to plan a lot of geopolitical events as well.
Yeah, yeah, and uh, let's go dive more deeply now into some of these power players that were revealed to be not to be very close to Jeffrey Epstein, where he was literally talking about them with Kathy Rumiere, who is Obama's on Obama's legal counsel, White House counsel. He says, girls, when talking to her, careful, I will renew an old habit. Mind you, she says, you might get sick of me just out down on this train. You're not managing anything your time well enough. It's UN General Assembly week. He says this week, Peter Thiel's, Larry Summers, William Burns, former CIA director, Gordon Brown, a former UK prime minister, Jagland, who is a Nobel Peace Prize chairman, was Mongolian president. He's just naming people, Boris Gates, Bill Gates, everyone who he has contacts with, who he meets with, and says, I might uh, pick up, I might renew an old habit. Uh, you, just your response before we move on.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, it's obvious that everyone in power, they're friends with each other. They know each other. So this sort of like struggle between nation states. It's all just a a curated media show for us. It's not. It's actually real. What goes on behind the scenes is that these powerful people are all friends. Okay, so even though there's wars going on between Russia and Ukraine, guess what? The elite of Ukraine and Russia all friends. Guess what? The elite of Europe and Russia and Ukraine and America, they're all friends. They go to the same parties. Their children go to the same schools. They're probably intermarried with each other. So that's really how the world works. And as more and more of these Epstein files are released, the more and more we will discover that the elite is all interconnected. They're just playing us for fools. That I think is the ultimate message of these file release.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and uh, Professor Zhang, in your works you have called America, where while Jeffrey Epstein seemingly was working for Israel, he was working within the United States and tugging on all of the most powerful people to the point where he was. I mean, a lot of people have been bringing this up. He had all of this dirt on Donald Trump, and then he ended up dead. Could you talk about the uh, given that we know Jeffrey Epstein was a major player in driving U.S. foreign policy, was majorly connected, and was likely conducting some kind of what seemed like a blackmail operation. Uh, Talk about why. Why is this necessary from the point of view of the power elite, those who are ruling over this empire? Because we have major connections to Israel, major connections to this decaying American empire that now Donald Trump is looking like the kind of uh, the leader that's falling on the sword, so to speak. That he is being absolutely uh, he is being dragged almost as the antichrist figure in all of this.
Yeah. So the first thing to note is that Jeffrey Epstein is not unique. You go to any major American city, I guarantee you there is a Jeffrey Epstein like figure coordinating among the city's different politicians, celebrities, mafia organizations, secret societies. Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein is a very common character in today's world. Now, why is that the case? Well, okay, so let's look at today's world, and I will highlight three structural issues with today's world. Okay, the first major problem with today's world is the atomization of society, meaning that we focus on the individual, whereas before in previous societies we focus on the family, the tribe, the clan. But nowadays we've all been atomized, we've all been individualized. That diminishes our capacity to work together for the pursuit of certain political ends. Okay, that's the first major problem in today's world. Second major problem in today's world is globalization, multiculturalism, transnationalism. So people's sense of ethnic identity has been dampened. It's been diluted, and so people are less willing to work for a cultural cohesive cause. Okay, that's the second major problem. The third major problem, which is the most major problem, is the bureaucratization of society. You look at the growth of the federal government in Washington D.C. Then you look at the growth of the EU superstate in Europe. So our lives have become more and more bureaucratic. The problem with this is that bureaucracies are indifferent, they're aloof, they're compartmentalized. Okay, so all these different departments are siloed off and they cannot coordinate together. So in today's society, you have a problem of coordination. How do you get groups to work together? Well, you get them to work together mainly for secret societies. And it's because secret societies solve three major problems that would benefit the members in today's society. The first is secrecy, second is trust, and the third is coordination. Okay, so secrecy because you don't want to be discovered. If you are discovered, people would think that you're cheating in this game, and then you would be outlawed, you'd be persecuted. Trust is how do you trust members of your society not to rat you out, and the third is how do you work together for a common cause, coordination. And the solution to all three problems is, of course, blackmail. So you need someone like Jeffrey Epstein, and there are lots of people like Jeffrey Epstein, to help the elite coalesce together through blackmail by engaging in acts of transgression, whether it's ritual sexual abuse of children, which is very common. But look, there are actually even worse forms of transgression. I'm not going to go into them because they are disgusting and vile. But we've all heard rumors um, of this transgression. So that's why we have blackmail today. That's why someone like Jeffrey Epstein is everywhere in society, and that's why we need someone like Jeffrey Epstein, because the only way for the elite to work together is through blackmail. Otherwise, they don't trust each other. Otherwise, they'll go to war with each other. So something I will say with regard to Donald Trump is that people forget that Trump's first mentor and his most influential teacher was actually Ray Cohn. Okay, if you look at Ray Cohn, if you look at history, he was actually the original Jeffrey Epstein. He was part of the Washington gay mafia, and he specialized in blackmailing politicians. He was very good friends with J. Edgar Hoover. They went to each other's parties where they engaged in all these sort of like homosexual endeavors, and they had pictures of each other. So Roy Cohn was the original Jeffrey Epstein, and he was the mentor of Donald Trump. So what did Donald Trump learn from Roy Cohn? He learned how to blackmail other people, but most importantly, and this is really important for us to understand, is he learned how to avoid being blackmailed. So another thing that I will say about Donald Trump is that he's a teetotaler. He does not drink. This is really weird because we've known him as a playboy ever since the 1980s, and he's always dating these beautiful women. He's always throwing these lavish parties. He's always hanging out with the most famous, the most wealthy, and he himself, even though he's organizing his parties, does not touch alcohol or drugs. Why? Because he learned from Roy Cohn. That's how they get you. Okay. The worst thing that can happen to you is blackmail. So I guarantee you, these emails that are coming out, there's no dirt on this guy. If there was any dirt on this guy, Donald Trump, we would have seen it in 2016 or 2020 when the elite spent $6 billion to get rid of Donald Trump. Okay. So I'm telling you right now, there's absolutely no blackmail on Donald Trump. I'm also telling you that blackmail is just a way of life among the powerful.
That was her response, Professor Jiang. Given if there is no dirt on Trump, why would he hide it then? Because in the emails, uh, what it was proven was that he had deep associations. Of course, we don't have proof that he took part necessarily in any of the activities beyond the fact that it seems like Virginia Giuffre was saying that she didn't want to run into Trump should Jeffrey Epstein not be there. So your assessment.
Yeah, so we know from news reporting that Epstein and Trump go all the way back. They've known each other ever since the 1980s, and they used to be best friends. Epstein was a frequent visitor to Mar-a-Lago, and they had a falling out because um, Trump believed that Epstein was stealing his workers to go work for himself, and so they had a falling out. And there's actually rumors that Trump was one of the informants that that um, landed Epstein in trouble with the law in the first place. And this is back in the early 2000s. So Epstein and Trump had a falling out. Okay, so that's something that we know. That's number one. Number two is that it's, as you say, it's really interesting that Trump doesn't want to talk about Epstein. In fact, he's done a lot to suppress the Epstein files. So why would he do that? So, okay, now let's do a thought experiment. It's really important for us to do a thought experiment to understand what's going on. The year is, we go back a year. Donald Trump has just won the presidency. And let's just assume what a second term would look like. We would think that in the business world, Elon Musk would be his main backer because Elon Musk gave $100 million to Trump's campaign, right? We would also expect that in the media, there would be three individuals that would be most supportive of Trump: Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, Kenneth Owens. Okay, and we can also expect within the U.S. Congress, Trump would have some diehard supporters that would do whatever he wants. Okay, and the two that would come most readily to mind are MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, as well as Lauren Bobbitt. Why? Because during the first term, these two were the most diehard Trump MAGA supporters. Okay, so that's what we would expect. Now, what is the reality? The reality is that with Elon Musk, he had a falling out with Donald Trump. You know, he had a black eye, then he left the White House, and after he leaves the White House, he has this tweet, and he's basically like, Trump's in the Epstein Files. Mark my words. Okay, that's kind of strange. Then you have Nick Fuentes, Kenneth Owens, Tucker Carlson turning against Trump, and in fact doing as much as possible to embarrass the Trump administration. Now you look at Congress. These Epstein files are being released because four Republican members of Congress have sided with the Democrats in voting for their release. Okay, and these four Republicans are Thomas Massie, Nancy Mace, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Bobbitt. In fact, what we know is that Penn Bondi had a very long meeting with Lauren Bobbitt trying to tell her, hey, man, don't switch sides. Don't vote for the release of these files. The president will be very angry at you, okay? So this is really weird. The people that we expect to most support Donald Trump in the second term have now turned against him. This makes no sense because what did Donald Trump do to piss these people off? So, and also, like, as I keep on saying, there's absolutely no blackmail on this guy because a guy like Donald Trump, he has been breaking a law in his entire life and getting away with it. So he knows how to skirt the law. He knows how to not get in trouble with the law. And he knows how to be careful about someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who cannot keep his mouth shut, okay? So I don't think there's any dirt on this guy. I'd be very surprised if the Epstein files implicate Trump in any manner. I understand, yes, Trump is named a lot in these files. I understand that, yeah, Trump likes to be seen with underage girls. Like, I mean, he was in charge of these like Miss Teen USA pageants, okay? So there's nothing really surprising about these Epstein files. So the question is, why is this happening? And I have a theory, okay? And this theory can be completely idiotic, okay? But I would pose this theory. It's all a show. It's a Trump show. It's all an illusion. Okay. These Epstein files do not implicate Trump, but he wants to create a spectacle around the Epstein files. You know, he was part of the World Wrestling Federation for a long time. He had his own TV show, The Apprentice, for a long time. So he understands TV show plotting. He understands how to maximize an audience emotional reaction to a certain event. What he's doing is creating tension, right? He could release the Epstein files like many months ago, and we would go over the Epstein files, and we'd be like, what is this crap? This tells us nothing that we don't already know. We know Bill Clinton, we know Bill Gates, we know Larry Summers, we know Jamie Dimon were all part of the Epstein circle, and they all visited Epstein Island. We know all this, right? So how do you create a visceral hatred for the Democrats and for the elite among the people? What you do is you create as much tension as possible by making this Epstein Files as seemingly secretive as possible. But not only that, but you create a situation in which the people are begging for the Epstein Files so that when new information comes out, they become more and more agitated. They become more and more violent. That's what we're seeing today. Okay. So remember what's happening. Remember what's happening is that while the House Oversight Committee, the Democrats, are releasing more and more files, with Trump being implicated, Trump has announced that they will launch an investigation of Bill Clinton and his ties with Epstein. And before, people would be like, this is partisan. Trump is clearly going after Democrats. But now people are like, oh, well, this makes sense because we want more information released about Epstein. Release all the files. Okay. So um, this is all theater. This is all an illusion. Trump is not implicated in the Epstein files, but Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Larry Summers, Jimmy Dimon, the main leaders of the Democratic Party in many ways. And it's possible that eventually John Podesta will be implicated as well. Okay, we're seeing Trump slowly use lawfare to go after his Democratic enemies. And it's quite honestly, it's entirely possible that one day Trump will use lawfare against Obama as well. So I know this sounds strange. I know this sounds like conspiracy theory, but just look at the facts before you.
Mm. Yeah, well, that's an interesting take, Professor Jar. From what I see from these emails, while they don't, I think a lot of people are seeing a smoking gun on a lot of these emails. Helped Israel build a back channel to Russia amidst Syria's war, although there was no.
He had just
What's really going on with the government's tariff policy? I'm recording this message from the epicenter.
Conquer Babylon, and he discovered that there were these captives from. So Israel is a very complicated issue, and again, I'm going to go on a limb and give everyone a controversial take. The Jewish identity, the Jewish people, is a creation of empire. It's a construct of empire. So I know this. So let me slowly explain what's going on, and please be patient, okay? So the Jewish people, the term Jews, came from the Persian Empire, and I would argue that Israel is a construct of the Persian Empire. Okay, so I know that in the Bible, the Bible says that the Jews come from Abraham, who lived like 4,000 years ago. But if you just look at the real history, Israel was a creation of the Persian Empire. Why? Well, because if you look at a map, at that time in history, the Middle East was the wealthiest part of the world. You had Anatolia, you had Egypt, you had Mesopotamia, you had the Mediterranean and the Aegean. And the center of this world was the Levant. So whoever controlled the Levant controlled the world. Cyrus the Great, he had just conquered Babylon, and he discovered that there were these captives from the former state of Judah. These are the proto-Jews. And the policy for the Persians is divide and rule. Okay, so to create as much these instability in a border area as much as possible as to maintain control, right? Because if the region is unstable, the empire has reason to exert control, but also much more importantly, you prevent another power from arising within your borderlands. So at this time in history, this would be up the year 500 Common Era. Um, Judah and Samaria were pretty peaceful places. There were Jews, Israelites, who had converted into the local polytheistic religion. At this time in history, most people in that area was polytheistic, and people got along really well. They intermarried together, and then along comes this guy Ezra, okay, and he's the governor, um, um, who is sent by Persia in order to recreate the Jewish identity. Okay, and he immediately proclaims that if you're a Jewish man and you want to still be Jewish, you must divorce your wife if you marry into a different religion. Okay, And this creates a lot of conflict. This creates a lot of instability. Ezra is the one who gives us the modern day Bible because he needs to construct this Israel identity. Now, why is this important? This is important because this is the same trick, this is the same um, strategy that the British will use when they become an empire. Okay, so at this time in history, they are since 1700, 1800, Jerusalem, the Levant, is being controlled by the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so the Ottoman Empire is a great geopolitical rival to the British. So how do you destabilize the Ottoman Empire? Well, you promote Zionism. Okay, you promote the idea that this land is the promised land that God promised to Abraham, and therefore the Jews have a right to it. And at first, this idea wasn't very popular, but then starting about 100 years ago, with the publication of Theodor Herzl's book, Fatherland, in German, calling for the creation of a Zionist state, then it started to gain more and more traction. Okay, so this is what we have to remember. Israel is a construct of empire in order to destabilize the region, and Israel has been doing a great job of that. Before the arrival of Israel, before the Zionist project, Jews in the Middle East got along really well with Muslims. In fact, throughout history, it's the Christians that were mainly to blame for the persecution of Jews. The Muslims have always been protective of Jews. So in 1492, when the Spaniards expelled the Jews, it was the Ottoman Empire that took them in. The Jews, climbed to positions of power and authority within the Islamic Caliphate. They've always been well respected. Um, Going back to the 1950s and the 1940s, the Jews were welcome in Baghdad. They were welcome in Tehran. They were welcome throughout the Middle East. But the Zionist project is being fueled by anti-Semitism, and they need manpower. So the Zionists were conducting all these terrorist attacks in Baghdad. The Jews no longer felt safe in Baghdad, so they start to immigrate um, uh, to Israel. So that's something that we have to keep in mind, that Israel is the pit bull of empire. It's a country of empire in order to destabilize the Middle East. And that's what Israel is today. America is using Israel in order to destabilize the Middle East, in order to maintain control over the oil resources, the trade routes, Jerusalem, which is the holy city for the three major Abrahamic religions. So that's why we keep on hearing about Israel.
Mm. You know, Jeffrey Epstein has long been considered an Israeli intelligence asset of some kind. I'm curious on where that factors into all of this, given his extensive involvement with some of the most important people, most powerful people, dictating U.S. foreign policy, dictating empire, and of course, using channels like Israeli intelligence in all of this. Your thoughts?
Look, Jeffrey Epstein was definitely Mossad operative, but he was definitely a CIA operative, and he could have been operative for the Russians, for um, the British. Okay, so the way that these spies work is that they're all double agents, triple agents, and that's why they're so effective, because they're able to be a nexus of different power elites. So so definitely Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad operative, but did he have loyalties to Israel? Maybe, maybe not. Was he good friends with Israel? Absolutely. But people like Jeffrey Epstein, they're all psychopaths. They're first and foremost loyal to themselves, and they use their power, they use their connections in order to amass more and more um, personal power to themselves. Look, the reality is that America is turning against Israel, and there's no stopping this. And I think one thing that we'll see over the next few years is this a surge in anti-Zionist settlement in America, and Jeffrey Epstein will be a catalyst for for that. And you know what? The American people are absolutely right in that their foreign policy should not be held hostage. Their foreign policy should not be dictated by any foreign nation. it makes absolutely no sense that AIPAC is not registered as a foreign agent in America. So I think that one thing that Donald Trump will do in the next couple of years, possibly sooner, is that he will ask for AIPAC to be registered as a foreign agent. And this will create a firestorm in American politics that we've never seen before.
Hmm. You know, Professor Jiang, as all of this drama around, we have MAGA splits, Candace Owens, these types moving away from Donald Trump around Epstein, as the emails came out, U.S. President Donald Trump begged for a pardon for Benjamin Netanyahu. He pardoned a major billionaire, a former Spurs owner, British billionaire who, was involved in insider trading. How do you think all of this factors into what's going on here in the current atmosphere? Is the U.S. you call the U.S. Or America anti-civilization? Is this anti-civilization going up in smoke?
The American empire is definitely in decline. So let me respond to this Trump Netanyahu relationship. So what happened was that after the Gaza ceasefire, Trump flew to Israel and gave a speech in the Knesset, and he singled out two individuals. The first is Benjamin Netanyahu, and the second is Miriam Adelson. And what he said is that, hey guys, we should give Benjamin Netanyahu a pardon, man. And then Netanyahu got a standing ovation. You look at Netanyahu's face at that moment, he was mortified because what Trump was implying is that Netanyahu is starting all these wars around the Middle East in order to not go to prison. Okay, so Trump made a point of embarrassing Netanyahu in the Knesset in front of the entire Israeli people. Okay, then he also singled out Miriam Adelson. He told a story of how he once had a conversation with Miriam Adelson, and he asked her, "Do you love America or do you love Israel more?" And Miriam Adelson would not answer. And Trump said to the Knesset again, in front of the entire nation, in front of these live cameras, he said, "Oh, well, this tells us that Miriam Adelson loves Israel more." Okay, so he's basically saying that Miriam Adelson is a traitor to America. This is not complimentary. Trump is basically trolling his biggest supporter, Miriam Adelson, as well as Netanyahu, who and so I mean, if you are just watching what's happening, you don't think that Netanyahu and Trump are friends. In fact, you think that they absolutely hate each other. So it's a very complicated um, relationship. And so what's really going on, I think, is that you have a decline of empire. I mean, as you say, and when an empire declines, what often happens is the elites attack each other. Okay, so Peter Turchin has a theory called elite overproduction, and this is what explains the decline of empires. That you have too many people who want these too few positions of elite status in which they can extract rent from everyone else. So, in other words, a way of saying this is that everything that Trump is doing is ultimately to target the deep state, to reveal who they are, okay? To reveal who they are, what they want, and how they work. So that the American people can rise up and overthrow the deep state. Now, maybe this is all just conspiracy, but if we understood in this way that Israel is a pet project of the existing deep state, and Trump wants to overthrow the deep state, so he wants to create all its problems for Israel, that can help us understand a lot of what's going on. Because remember, the people who are most attacking Israel in the media, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Parker Carlson, they are they used to be adamant Trump supporters. So why are they never falling out? Um, Also remember that Candace Owens is blowing up on the internet because of Charlie Kirk, right? And what she's saying, what she's implying is that Israel is was responsible for the Charlie Kirk assassination because Charlie Kirk didn't want Trump to bomb Iran. Okay, that's what she's implying. So a lot of sentiment is turning against Israel. also remember that what's happening right now is that Larry Ellison has bought TikTok, which was for the longest time one of those weird platforms in which you can criticize the genocide in Gaza. His son has bought CBS, Viacom, and installed Barry Weiss, a very well-known Zionist, as uh, editor-in-chief of CBS News. Okay, so this does not seem like Israel is gaining power in America. It seems more like desperation. It seems like more like they're being revealed, they're being attacked, and they feel as though they have no choice but to defend themselves. So it's almost like a fight or flight mentality. So we are seeing, I think, the end of Zionism in America. I really think that these next 2 to 3 years, there'll be a concerted attack against Zionism in America, which implicates the deep state. Okay, because the deep state is first and foremost a Zionist organization. The deep state and Zionism are almost intermarried with each other. So if you attack Zionism, you're also attacking the deep state as well. So I think that's what's happening.
Would you say then, based on your take here, that people like Candace Owens, for example, their opposition to Trump, which they say is because of Epstein and also because of Trump's inability to stop the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, would you say that those reasons that people like her, Tucker Carlson have given are disingenuous? Like it's not the stated reason. That there really isn't a reason why they should be breaking from Trump. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think, look, the Epstein emails tell us that journalists are political operatives, right? So if you look at Michael Wolff, you look at Thomas Landon of New York Times, they were basically acting like um, political strategists for Epstein. Okay, so, you know, for someone like Kenneth Owens, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, to reach the level of fame and power that they have in America, they need to be able to read the political winds properly. Okay, so I'm not saying that Donald Trump and Candace Owens talk on the phone and discuss strategy. They don't do that. But Candace Owens has a read on Donald Trump. He has a read on his intentions. She reads the political winds in America. She knows where the MAGA base is going. And she positions herself in a position that allows her to speak the truth in a way that is also political advantage to her. And that's why they're so successful, because they're able to have a sixth sense of where the political winds are shifting and how to best position yourself in a certain place that allows the wind to ride you to success.
Right now, as you watch this, your brain is being hijacked. You think you're in control. But there's a back door to your mind that 99.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Tucker Carlson's history, he has a history of being close to, if not an operative of the CIA, especially during the years of the U.S. dirty war in Nicaragua. So that history is never really spoken of. So for me, while it's understandable that these figures can play a positive role for especially those who follow them in opposing things like Ukraine, Iran war, Gaza. Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if all
Look,
of that was
look,
was political wins because they jumped on it when things were going south and that sentiment was already there, even if they've built upon it. But please.
no, I mean, look, Tucker Carlson, his father was CIA operative, right? And he's trying to keep it secret for a long, long time. I mean, like, I think in an interview he once said, said that he really doesn't know what his father does. Like, how do you not know what your father does? Does Tucker Carlson was for the longest time trying to pretend that his father was a journalist. Okay, so his father was a CIA operative, but also much more importantly, he was very high up in the CIA. Okay, he was part of a major CIA faction. And sort of Tucker Carlson grew up in that sort of environment. Even today, he's probably very close with the CIA. I mean, as you mentioned, in his 20s, he once went to Nicaragua, and he had this picture of a gun standing with CIA operatives, and he was very proud of that. When he interviewed Putin said to him, "Hey, I know that you once applied to the CIA and they rejected you." They don't reject a son of a CIA operative. what the CIA probably said to Tarko is like, you know, you're probably more useful to us if you worked as a journalist, right? Everyone's sort of Operation Mockingbird, and you know, a CIA project to embed journalists into the media to better control, right? So someone like Bob Bernstein of Washington of Watergate fame. I mean, I'm sorry, Bob Woodward. I'm sorry. Bob Woodward. He is clearly a CIA asset. If you just read his books, if you look at his role in Watergate, okay, this guy who's like in his mid-20s, graduates from Yale, was probably in Skull and Bones, joins the Navy, is a naval intelligence officer. He quits that and he joins the Washington Post Metro section. Guess what his first assignment is? It's Watergate. Who the hell does that? Who the hell gets assigned Watergate as his first assignment? No reporting experience, no connections whatsoever, and this guy gets Watergate. So the media, it's all CIA. I'm sorry, it's not all CIA, but you know what I mean. Like a lot. There's a lot of media that's CIA.